we want to focus on the fact that the master teacher is innocent and will be exonerated of all the false charges against him. In this day and time, Pāyamānzāl Nzdar is the only being who can guide us safely during this day and time. So it is imperative that we do not get complacent as we receive the new outformation, because without the freedom of Pāyamānzāl Nzdar, we will not be able to subsist through this day and time. So, of course, we will remind the family to keep up all work on avenues for his freedom, support those who are working on behalf of the master teacher and his freedom with your love, remembering that love and unity is the key to his freedom. Time is very imperative that we free the master teacher at this time, and the affirmation that we get every week just underscores this fact, not only for our survival, but for our love for him as our father and our friend and our guide. We owe him nothing less. So please keep up with your chants at 9, 3, and 9, those hours of power. Continue with the love and unity. Continue with the work on the master teacher's behalf. Continue mastering our language, Nuwaupuyi, so we have the proper tones that we need in this day and time. And of course, continue to not only ingest or intake our genetic doctrine, but apply it as well. All these things are pertinent in this day and time. We have to continue to remind ourselves to keep the main thing, Pāyamānzāl Nzdar. So for this evening's class, we have an update of affirmation, and we're going to finish the affirmation regarding the harvest of the Canaanite world. The first updated piece of information has to do with what most do not know. Pāyamānzāl Nzdar, Amundabarei greets us as Pakaradu, the children, his children. He is the father. And as Nuwapu, we are the children. He speaks about how much is going on worldwide in these days, and the fact that the planet is really being controlled by extraterrestrials. Most people don't even realize this fact because they are so blinded by religion and the beings that have been at war for thousands of years. From the Anunnaki, the Dᴏɪr'ⴜ and the Igigi of Enlil, these are the same beings that became the seraphim or the Sepharu of the Torah, and the Karabu or the cherubim, and they were overseen by the Anakim or the Elohim or Alihat. Both sides seek to rule Taha or the earth and all of its resources, including its livestock, which they view as animal or human. And many other extraterrestrials came in and joined with the conflict. As Pāyamānzāl Nzdar, Amundabarei Hᴜᴜᴜᴜ has continually emphasized to us, many beings, most beings on this earth, earthlings, Mutalu, are under a spell of hypnotic sleep. Beings of the earth were given amnesia, and they worship the very beings that actually use them as slaves and see them as food. They use them as hunters and armies in order to procure their blood red flesh meat cravings. So it's so many of them they don't even know who to serve or why. So the beings of the earth who are under this hypnotic spell of sleep live by faith, hopes, wishes, and they say that their god or gods are unseen. But it's becoming clear the mass deception that is going on. But because of fear most people cling on to their false religions, and they always become rivals out of clinging their false religion, as spoken of in the argument Patarat brought to us by our Supreme Grand Council of 24 Elders. So from the two brothers Enki and Enlil, and the rivals Anu and Alalu, onto the Dᴇɪr and the Gigi, a third group is always created, known as the Ushemgal. So it became Cain and Abel, and you have also down throughout time the Habaru or the Hebrews and the Yᴏᴜ or the Jews, and they became the Sephardim and Ashkenazim, and the third Reformed, which would be the Zionists. With the Kasasu, the Christians, you have the Gnostic and the Catholic, and the third party being the Protestants. With Muslamu, the Muslims, you have the Sunni and the Shiites, and then the third party would be the Hashashi, and from each you have many sects and groups and denominations and clans. All of these groups claim the same unseen beings as supreme beings. All of these religions claim that they have the one true deity, who in time will kill all the other deities. This is how the planet is being ruled in this day and time, and Hamanu, or humans of all races, are slaves to these extraterrestrials who used them to fight, war, and kill, and give them weapons of destruction. Some of these beings whisper into the minds of humanoids to get them to create cults and gangs and armies and police force. Law enforcement. Law enforcement is given the power to abuse, to enslave, and to kill anyone who violates the law, which we know to be Leviathan or Lawi-Tanan. Dracos, draconian laws. In Gad they trust. Yet they don't even know that Baal is Baal-Gad, or Enlil and his son is Nanar, or Sin, Zuin, El Shaddai. Any of them could be Yahweh, or Jah, or Adonai, or El of Elohim, Allah of Alihat, or the Theos of Theoi, God of gods, Lord of lords, King of kings, which means kin of their kinsmen. And now again they are killing humans worldwide and world over by hate and war. They call it politics. Phonetically you hear Apollo from Helios. Apollo, the son of Zeus and Leto. This is their religion. They serve by Anunnaki and they don't even realize it because they operate off of blind faith. All these religions are told that they're right. All of them can die, kill, war, and fight to rule the planet. So now we're in the hereafter. We're past the 2000 AD mark. The 6,000 years ended in 2000 AD, and they have been deserted by their overlords, and they are self-destructing world over in the name of Gad. So you ask, what can we do? As Pāmanzal Nizdar, Amunda Barre Akpata Zetwi, Hūkawen Harar has told us for years, get out of the way. Stay out of their way. They keep all race close to them as a shield of protection. Any group that teaches the African here in the Western Hemisphere to, stay here, stay with them. Let's set up our own area in America, such as what the Nation of Islam has advocated, or what the Moorish Americans advocate, to stay here in North America. They let them speak as much as they want. But then when you have those who say, let's go back to Africa, like the Honorable Marcus Garvey, or Kwame Nkrumah, who was bringing our people back home to Africa, they kill or imprison them so that they can keep our race close to them. Why? Because the rulers of this universe are our Salafu, our ancestors, Panataru, and they will remove them all. But now that Africans or Panagaru, Negroids are mixed in with them by living so close, they don't wish to destroy you, their own children. So the Anunnaki know this, and Pakamahu, the Pleiadians, also know this. So they put it in the minds of the Kakasu, who don't even really realize why they won't allow us to return home to our home. Africa, Africa. So every time they hear a Nagaru or a Negroid say or teach, let's go, something in the mind of Pakasu always says, call them a cult or lock up their leader, but don't let Panagaru get away from us, or Panataru will destroy us all and start over. Pamanzal Nasdar expressed that he hopes that we overstand now what we see going around us all. Most people don't even have a clue what is going on all around them. They need us, Panagaru, the Africans, in the religions of Abraham or Ibru. He tells us not to accept what they're saying about UFOs, that it's nuts and it's crazy. They say that it's crazy, but at the same time they spend billions of dollars trying to watch the sky or get to the moon or get to Mars. What would be the point of that if nothing is out there? They say heaven is up there. Well, we're going up there, but, heaven is up there. And God and Christ came down from up there. But at the same time, they're saying that God and Jesus can come up from there, but they can't accept that other beings came down to Taha, to earth from somewhere above. He reiterated the point about deception in religion. So let's look at the politician or religious teachers. Religious teachers, preachers, politicians, they all campaign for followers. They campaign for followers to trust them to believe in unseen powers or sufferings all the same. They repeat the same things over and over when they teach or preach, nothing new. It's the same old stories, the Bible or the Quran or politics world over. It's no real answers as to why. Just believe. And it's sad because it makes people zombies or robots, just the blind leading the blind. And if you do know the truth, they will imprison you to shut you up. But thankfully, we are blessed to receive Wunuwap, our own spiritual science, from our master teacher, Pamanzal Nasdar Amundabarre Akhwata Zetwihu Kawan Harar. And it is breaking the spell fast. There's nothing they can do to stop it. He said it's too late. The hereafter doctrine is now here, and people will wake up and watch as Pamudau, or the evil ones, are removed from the planet. They seek weapons of mass destruction to destroy us all and wipe us out. Their overlords actually gave them these weapons in the 1940s to wipe us all out, destroy us all. And they actually put ideas in the minds of the Germans who worked with the extraterrestrials under Hitler. And then they came to the US once Hitler and some of his men were taken up. The ones left behind came to New Babylon, the USA, and they built weapons such as the atomic bomb and more with the plan to destroy the entire planet. And since 2000 AD, they've been back at it with these massive destructive weapons. Killing, warring, fighting religious wars as their overlords left them here to self-destruct. But their spirits are trapped. Their ghost orbs and white balls of light will get destroyed too, and they're confused and they don't know what else to do. Harar also explained how they offer up the flesh and blood to plead to their gods to return. So now they're using the weather weapons such as the HARP project to kill millions each month. And over the years, in classes we've spoken of how many of the major disasters were actually triggered by the HARP project, which sends out waves, high-powered waves to cause natural disasters. So they use the weather weapons, the HARP project, to kill millions each month in order to offer up to Pakarabu or the cherubim their blood offerings, their sacrifices to ask their god or Gad, Nanar, Sin, Zuin, Zion to return to them and to smell the sweet savor of burning flesh, which you hear in the Bible all the time about the savor of the flesh, killing millions of people in wars and floods and earthquakes and tornadoes and storms. So Psalm Dar is speaking about how much is going on around us. And it's sad, again, because most people don't even know. Among Pakaskasu, the poor whites, they even offer their own. They offer up the poor whites to their gods because they don't care. It's a sad but true reality. And as always, Psalm Dar says, don't believe me, check it all out. So with that, we're going to continue with the information regarding the harvest of the Canaanite world. In the first part of the affirmation that we shared, it spoke about how the deities and gods of the monotheistic religions and other religions, Jah, Yahweh, Elohim, Alihat, these are all actually names that are hiding the true identities of bloodthirsty extraterrestrials who are coming to have the harvest on the world. Harvest for the world is spoken of in the Bible. There was a deal made between the Pleiadians and the Draconians for the Pleiadians to supply the Draconians with flesh because the Pleiadians were being eaten by the Draconians. And they have used the planet Earth through the monotheistic religions as a way to cull up the meat in order to appease these bloodthirsty gods and save themselves, being the Pleiadians. So we're just going to continue with that affirmation. Now there's been a vortex opening every 10 years since 1943. And a process started in 1940 where scientists were attempting to open a vortex. However, they did not have a computer large enough to accomplish accomplish this, so they actually built one, and it was finished by 1943. And it took 3 years. And with 1943, you had extraterrestrials, or the gods of these religions, coming down to return. In 1947 AD, there was a crash known as the Roswell incident. And actually, it didn't actually happen in Roswell. It happened a few miles outside of Roswell in the area called Corona, New Mexico. So, July 2nd, 1947, a saucer crashed. This was the first crash site. And there were 3 graves that were found, and they were secreted away to an area called Area 51. Now, at that time, there was a ranch hand named Mac Brazel who actually discovered the crash, and the crash was 3/4 miles long and 250 miles wide, meaning the coverage of the impact of the craft and the debris. So when he found the remnants of the crash, he actually approached the sheriff's office and showed them the remains of the flying disc. And this was on July 6th of this year. So the sheriff thought the military base, the local military base, would be interested in this, and he presented the findings to them. And the crash actually happened in 2 parts. So there was an area with debris, and there was an area with the actual cabin, and these 2 areas were actually 60 miles apart from each other. When the authorities came, in order to mask what had happened, they said that what happened was a weather balloon crashed, and they actually denied the fact that there were any alien bodies there, even though at that time there's records of inquiries and calls being made about dry ice, procuring dry ice, because that's what's used to preserve bodies. And lots of dry ice was actually bought from stores at the time to preserve these bodies of these aliens that were found. Now, of course, by the end of the investigation, Mr. Brazel's story had changed. However, to the day he died, he insisted that he did see a flying saucer. So from that day, there was a lot of activity going on from the base. After the crash discovery, there were actually trips made to Roswell and 4 other bases, and it was each of these trips was transporting debris from the crashing of this craft. July 6th, there was a trip to Fort Worth, Texas, then Washington, D.C., then there was a flight to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, then to Los Alamos, Texas on July 8th, and July 9th, there was a trip from Washington, D.C. to Roswell, and then another trip made from Roswell to Fort Worth, Texas, which is a lot of activity for a craft that had no bodies, or the crashing of a weather balloon. So from this one incident, you can tell how they've been trying to keep the existence of extraterrestrials a secret in order to keep the masses under control. Because if it became publicly known or publicized by, let's say, the government, who most people view as the source of reliable information, or the media, if they were to put forth there were extraterrestrials, which they know exist, there would be massive chaos. So they're trying to keep control. Because the masses of people on this planet don't have a clue about anything that's going on this planet. And if something does happen in real life, they make a movie about it so that people think it's not real. Or they preemptively make a movie about it so that when it happens, people won't even have the concept in their mind that something like that could really happen. And by the time it happens, it's too late. Lulled in the spell of sleep. So that there are people who may actually have an extraterrestrial encounter in sleep. But because they saw it in a movie, they're thinking, oh, I'm just thinking about the movie. It's not really real. So it's all about control. Because the concept of religion and a God that will save you and protect you from the devil would be null and void with the introduction of extraterrestrials. That's a factor that does not appear in any of the books of the Bible. God is not conceived of as an extraterrestrial, even though he comes from heaven down to earth. But that would destroy that concept. And that religious concept keeps their flock in line. Remember, churches are called a flock for a reason. So, when the issue of extraterrestrials gets raised with those of a religious community or religious mindset, it will bring up some questions. Even in giving the information we're giving, someone would say, well, that means that there's a being that can come down here, take you from Earth, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Yes. Their God, their Jesus, is not going to save them from an extraterrestrial coming here in the harvest for the world and taking them. In fact, their God and Jesus is actually seasoning and preparing the meat to be harvested by these bloodthirsty gods. So there's nothing that can be done to avoid being harvested if you have surrendered yourself to these gods. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And this is inclusive of Tğᴇ. When you look at the harvest for the world in the Bible as the listing of the 144,000, you see the presence of the tribe of Judah, which we've learned is a Negroid tribe. So you ask, could Negroids be harvested in the harvest of the world? If they have fallen under the ways of Pakakasu, yes. If their vibration has changed to the point that their own ancestors, Pasalafu Panataru, cannot recognize them, yes. So it's very important to not just see being dark meat or being African as your sole sense of protection. If you are vibrationally eating what they eat, wearing what they wear, thinking how they think, absorbing their music, absorbing their way of life, seasoning your body with cigarettes and alcohol, you are just as ripe for the picking as any Kakasu. However, if you come under the way of Uᴘᴜ, showing reverence to your ancestors, Pasalafu Panataru, that is where the protection comes in. So the question is to be raised, what would happen if millions of people became aware of the extraterrestrial presence on this planet? You would have mass hysteria. And there's actually a book that addresses this, called UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, and it's written by Leslie Kean. And it describes how the revelation of this kind of information would cause mass hysteria, a loss of order, chaos, and a lack of governmental control, because the people would demand, well, why weren't we told this? Why don't we know this? What are you doing about this? But at the same time that the masses are being kept ignorant, those in higher places are making plans in order to avert them being harvested in the harvest for the world. They're making plans and they're making deals so that they can stay off the menu of the gods. Because they have the understanding that God is an extraterrestrial being as described in the monotheistic religions. And when you break down extraterrestrial, of course you have extra, something outside, terra meaning the earth, and astral of the stars. So again, the flesh-eating beings have returned and they've begun abducting Canaanites who were bred for the last 2,000 years from the point of Jesus or Jah-Zus or Jah-Zizus or Jah-Zuin. He is also known as Shezmu or Shazum or Zervan, the father of Ahriman and Ormans in Persia or Chaldea. He had to offer sacrifices for 1,000 years. Now, Psalm also spoke to us about Amhe. And if you look in the Comprehensive Dictionary of the Gods by Anne Baumgartner, you will see entries for Amhe. Then this is an Egyptian flesh-eating deity. So this flesh-eating deity is actually the fake Jesus. So for 2,000 years, people followed the fake Christ, who also became known as Isa in the Muslim religion of Al-Islam. Psalm explained to us how Islamism is nothing but Gnostic Christianity. It's a Gnostic Egyptian Coptic sect from the Ethiopian church. And this is where they got most of their rituals, their rites, their style of dress, their tongue, their dialect known as Arabic, from the language of the Arabs from a land that became known as Arabia. So they were Christians first. And you can actually read this in Acts 2:11. Arabs were actually there in the day of Pentecost when the Israelites got possessed by the fire gods and spoke in cloven tongues like as a fire. And this is the same as El Shaddai, who the Muslims call Ash-Shadid and the Hebrews call Ha-Shad. This is the God or Elohim of fire. And you can find this deity in Exodus 3:14 and Exodus 15:11. So if you ask, who are these Elohim or Yahweh or Rephim or Cherubim? They're killers, spoken of in Exodus 19:1-14, Exodus 19:8-16, a fire Yahweh. And also read Luke 10:18. Then if you look in Exodus 19:18, you see that these Yahweh descended upon it in fire, and the Draconians did not want the Israelites to see what they looked like or gaze on, as in Exodus 19:21. And this could be found in Hebrew Strong's number 7200 as Ra'ah, to see with the human eye. Also see Hebrew Strong's number 7210, and the same word in Arabic is Ray, to see. These beings are cherubim, spoken of in Exodus 25:18-22, also known as their Lord, who said to kill people in Exodus 32 and Numbers 11:1-3. And this same Lord Yahweh also chose females of them for sex. And that's spoken of in Numbers 31 35. So this fire god, or the god of light, of Patat, Tat, the heavens, and Taha, earth, asked for blood offerings, sacrifices, killings, cookings of flesh on altars, rituals, and rites, and even holidays to kill for them. And the word in Hebrew is Rab, the same in Arabic for as Rab, meaning Lord, Master, and Sustainer. And in Sumerian for the Anunnaki or Anakim, En means Master or Lord, as in Enlil, Master of the Sky, as Lil is actually Ilah, La, or short for Allah.